Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, testing. I guess I should be live already. Hey everyone. So it's a very impromptu stream where I'm gonna build a pack for Make Datastore. And before I do that, well, first let me complain a bit about the fact that I was working on, well, the Sync Tables Pro, something the pack, you all heard about it, the cross-doc replacement. I was working on it, and then my wife called me and told me that I had to extract some data from our chatbot. So here's 5 minutes of context for those who didn't watch my volunteer stream or who just skipped over, and I don't judge you because it was like 2 or 3 hours long. I was talking about all things volunteers. So yeah, by the way, here's the thumbnail that was made with the Edit Images pack for this stream. And yeah, before I go into my stream and whoever joined, please, if you didn't know, sorry for jumping on different subjects. So priority number 1, please vote for my pack. I made a pack for the Packathon. Coda was running a Packathon. Anyone could build a pack for Coda. Normally people would build API connectors because packs are usually meant to connect Coda to different services like, I don't know, Stripe, HubSpot, MailChimp, yada yada. I decided to do something entirely different, discovered a way to edit images. And by the way, in the community, you can see I posted this in the community, the discovery, that you can, edit and combine images right in Coda by simply manipulating the URLs, because the images are already uploaded. Whatever images you upload to Coda servers, they get uploaded, they get processed by a service called Imgix, and things that Imgix can do, among others, is making adjustments, applying effects, and making compositions. And this is extremely cool because, well, you can make thumbnails, you can make posts for your social media. I will talk about this separately, so there's going to be a separate video where I explain the pack in detail. But yeah, this is the pack I made. I published it to the gallery. The pack is free. Eventually it will be split in 2, and one of them will become a premium one. But so far the pack is free for anyone to use, to try. And well, I submitted it for the judging, and the judges will ultimately decide who's the first, the second, the third place of the Packathon. But there is also the community voting. And for community voting, I need your help, because people are asking to vote for themselves. People are talking to their audiences. There are several packs in the top that, well, they obviously talked to their audiences. And here is mine. It's on the 6th place right now. So overall there's 42 projects, and well, they are grouped together by place. I need some help. I need some upvotes. I'll be bland with you, or well, I'll be direct with you, right? So please support Edit Images, because it's cool. It replaces the need for services like Bannerbear or some other where you generate yourself posts for Instagram and so on. You will soon be able, you are able to do this in Coda already with my pack, and I'll make it even more convenient after I am finished with the rest of my assignments, right? By the end of this month, I will finish this pack, hopefully, and publish it and post all about it. And before that, I'll even record a video explaining what is already done. So that is number 1 priority. Whoever's watching, please upvote me. Yeah, find the thread. I'll actually post the link to the chat. Here it is in the chat. Please, pretty please. Whoever else can I ask, if not my patrons or YouTube subscribers? Anyway, back to our things. So we are, well, you already know I'm in Ukraine. We live in Uzhhorod. Uzhhorod is the most western city. It was not as affected by the war. I mean, we didn't have any bombs falling on us. Hopefully it will never happen. The city became, as it's the closest to the border, it became a safe haven for internally displaced people, or, well, as you casually say, refugees. So people were fleeing the war from the east parts of Ukraine, the eastern parts of Ukraine. They found their shelters here. Many of them left without any belongings. I'm a bit blurry. Well, maybe it's a video quality. Maybe you can up your stream quality, Virginie, because for me it says it's fine. I mean, the bandwidth is fine. Well, it's not as blurry for me. So let me see. Interesting. It says that's no good. That's no good. If there is no way for you to watch my stream in full HD, then it does not really make much sense to run this stream. I'll see what I can do. Oh, it's okay now, right? If it's okay, then I'm fine. Anyway, okay. If it's okay, then okay. All right. So I was saying, lots of people coming to Uzhhorod, lots of people staying here, lots of them left with no possessions. So one thing that Uzhhorod volunteers, which were established by my wife and I and some of our friends, we are already a non-governmental organization, so we established an NGO for ourselves. We do much more than just coordination of volunteers. We give out humanitarian aid, so we give clothing and essentials and personal care and some food packages to internally displaced people. Other than that, we started delivering goods to the east of Ukraine. So there's like lots of different operations going on. And and particularly what happens now, right? My wife just went there to the humanitarian hub, to the center where we have a warehouse there, and we have a place where they give out the goods, the food packages, and so on for those who cannot afford it. And I made earlier, I talked about that, I made a chatbot because we need to register pretty much each time we give out something to a person. We need to, well, track this somehow. We need this for reporting. We need to report to the organizations who supply us with these food packages, with all the goods. We need to report and tell that, okay, we gave out, in these dates, we gave out this many packages to this many people. Some of them are, repeating visitors. Some of them are new, where they are from, and so on. And this, we need this for all the bookkeeping, essentially. We need to show that, okay, there are real people, we are really giving out things to them. So I made a chatbot. In retrospect, it's not the best idea, but, well, it was a temporary solution. And what's more permanent than temporary? Yeah, we have this saying. So there's nothing more permanent than a temporary thing. And yeah, so we register people, add their passport data or their IDs of internally displaced people, register what we gave out to them. If that's a package that came to us from Medicines Sans Frontiers, which is Doctors Without Borders organization, we need to also track their gender, age, and whether they pay for their own shelter, so what kind of housing they have. And they need this for statistics, so there's some extra questions that they have to go through. And yeah, we photo the people. It works as if, it works like a signature. So instead of asking people to put their signatures, we photo them with the packages we give out to them. And this all goes into a database. And the database we use is the so the platform that I built the chatbot on. It's because it's the platform that I know. the Telegram chatbot, I built this on a platform called Make.com, previously known as Integromat. Make.com, well, this is quite a blueprint, right? So this is the chatbot logic. It's set up in bubbles. So when a new message comes to a Telegram chat, in Telegram it's like a WhatsApp, but very popular here and much more powerful. Like look up the admin, prompt them to register, whatever, process the message, get the photos or upload the photos, find the records, update the records. So the chatbot is a conversational one. It asks questions like enter first name, enter last name. So it all goes through a chain here, and then one of the paths here, and then one of the paths here to send a reply. So it's all set up. The whole framework is set up here. And of course, Make is not really made for so complicated things like this. It's my Coda tricks nature, my tricky nature that prompted me to build it like this. Normally it's for simpler things than chatbots like it. So I will probably eventually, I will recreate this chatbot as regular code. And you can already see that someone is, well, maybe my wife, maybe someone else is working through the bot. So you can see that, okay, there are paths engaging, so messages are going through all these paths, so everything lights up when there is a request running. So people are using currently the humanitarian hub. The humanitarian hub is open. They are giving out goods. You can, well, see that there are lots of requests, and it wouldn't be possible if the Make.com guys didn't sponsor me, because normally well, the 3 million operations plan would cost $3,000 or something per month, and they just sponsored it for us because we are volunteers and they support volunteer efforts in Ukraine. So that's why, well, that's why I built in Make, right? That's the platform I know. That's where I built it. And there is a question now. Perhaps you may have a question why I'm not storing this to Coda directly. Well, the answer is you store something to Coda, it does not get stored immediately to Coda, right? There is a delay between the request of adding a row somewhere and the row actually being added to the snapshot. So there is a delay. You send an update to a row to Coda, or you send an add row request to a Coda. It may take 2, 3, 5 minutes before the request. So the Coda, it collects the requests that come in, all the edits that come in, and then it flushes all of them to a snapshot on some cadence, like once in 2, 3, 5 minutes, depending on the size of the doc. If it's a smaller doc, it's going to happen faster. If it's a larger doc, it's going to happen on a slower pace. So you cannot do things like here in the scenario of the hubbot, you cannot do things like create a record and save the person's name, and then immediately in this next message get that record and save the person's last name, because the person may not be there yet. It is not added as a row yet. So we need something more robust. And what could be more robust than using the database that is already in Make.com? So there is the Datastores capability. These are the tables, the databases, right in the Make.com, right in the Make platform, and they actually are robust. So if I have two modules and one says add a row and another says read from that recently added row, it's actually what's going to happen synchronously. This will create a row, and here when I try to read from that row or update that row, it is already there. So there is no the problem that we have with Coda is not there. That's why I used the Make.com data store to store the data there. And here you can see that Hub Profiles is our big table of people and their private data, their passports, the last photo URLs, last visit dates, last given out items. So there is some duplication so that I don't have to always read from different places. I could, whenever I need to have a list of people, I only read from the profiles table, and when I need to get a history for a particular person, I read from the Hub Gives table. Now, well, there are 3,300 something people registered, so profiles, 6,800 gives. Some of them are incomplete gives, so there is a flag that says, okay, it's a complete record or it's an ongoing record. There is a need to dump this to Coda, right? So there is a need to dump this to Coda to make the reports, and actually, yeah, there are already, I think this one or this one, some of these docs are newer. Yeah, I did some exports here. So it gets exported to the Coda doc, and we have all the data about, well, all the gives. You can see the photos. So it was the old location still. Yeah, the old gives. It can be printed out as a report, and I also collect some analytics depending on, yeah, who is picking up the goods. There is the age distribution and whatnot, so that people who provide us with these packages, they can see that, okay, we have two peaks. We have a peak at like 30 something, 35 years old, and we probably need to send them this and that kind of food, or this and that, or that kind of hygiene. And then we have a peak of older people at like 60. Perhaps we need to provide them with something else. So yeah, yeah, this is what we collect. And how do I get data from Make into the Coda doc? Well, I never built a connector, so one way I get it is that I have a scenario where I search records, and there is a limit, and I have to always update that search for records after a given date, and it's never saved, and I always have to update this. And then when I run this, I always run into that limit that you can only insert 50 make 50 requests to a Coda. Then it says that API, you are making too many requests, you have to go through a cooldown period, and I don't even know which one of these is taking care of that dump. It's not even there, and I always recreate it again and again. And when today my wife told me that I had to make a new dump, and perhaps with some data already duplicated with the data that we dumped, I just thought, screw it, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm making an official connector to the Datastores. And don't expect, and let's just me set up expectations for the stream, I'm not building the whole connector for adding the data, modifying the data. All I need right now is to get the data quickly, hopefully in an hour or by the end of the hour. I need to connect to Make.com and sync the data from Make.com, right? So I need to sync the data from Hub Gives, Hub Profiles, and Hub MSF give extras. I need to sync the data into Coda and recreate the reports that I had created and make that report. So I need to do this by the end of today, and hopefully by the end of today I also want to finish the cross-doc plus and publish it in whatever form. So I don't have much time, and I will not make a complete pack, but hopefully what I make now on the stream should illustrate enough how to work with packs, how to work with Pack Studio, how to get started building a pack, and well, just follow along. I mean, enjoy the show. And before I start, a very short break. Yeah, a very short break, like 5-minute break. How do I go about that? So this is my profile. This is my workspace. I will do this in the codatricks.com workspace. I'll create a pack here. Start with an empty pack. Call it a Make Datastore. Make Datastore. I'll make a thumbnail for it later. Here is I will not I don't want to close this because I will lose track of where I was. So I need to keep on working in this place. I'll just lose it if I close the tab. So let me have that tab open. I will create a new doc, and it creates in an arbitrary workspace. So I already have to move it. Oh, no, it created in a normal workspace. So I'll move it later. And it's our hub database, sync, and I'll work from this doc from now on. I'll make a very short break, 5 minutes, and I'll get back to you. Okay, just a regular setups. Well, I will not make brain music because I don't want to get. I don't have the speakers here. I'm sitting downstairs. You can figure by the TV behind me, the flip chart beside me. So I am not, and I don't want to wear headphones right now. There is no need for me to wear headphones because there is nobody around. I'm all alone in this room. No mess going on, so no people running around talking to each other. So I can just work through this and explain things as I go. So okay, and yeah, our regular thing. I'll start the Pomodoro tracker just so that we keep track of our time. Perhaps it's not gonna be one Pomodoro, it's gonna be 2-3 Pomodori for the stream. The cadence is gonna be like 50 minutes. I'm working for 50 minutes, I'm taking a break for 5 minutes or whatever. Working for 50 minutes, taking a break for 5 minutes. And you can take a break, you can plan for a break like that. And of course the stream, as usual, the stream is recorded, so you can rewatch it. You can rewatch it in 1.5 and 2x the speed. If you were Joe Matlick, you can watch it in 7x the speed. I remember he was the one watching my streams or my videos at like insane speed up. So yeah. Right. Step number 1, when you're making a pack. you need to locate the API. So with case, usually you just Google for things like make.com API or whatever service API. The problem with Make is that it is built around the ideas of API. So the first results you will get from Google on make.com is how to connect to different APIs using Make, but not about the Make's API itself. So you have to scroll down a little bit to maybe, to whatever, integrate with APIs, calling Google APIs, blah, blah, blah. You need to, perhaps go to the help center and find API documentation here. And that's how you get to the documentation of Make's API itself. You would usually want to examine the authentication, how it authenticates, either an OAuth 2 or just a token authentication. It usually tells you about, all things authentication. Sometimes for simpler services, there is one token to rule them all. You create yourself a token and you have access to whatever you can do as a user in that service. Sometimes there's also the scope settings, so you can limit what you can do with this token, like only read the data but not write the data. With OAuth, you have to specify specifically what tokens you are requesting access to. So it's a different mechanism. Here you just have a token. Sometimes someone provides you a token, and that token is a proof that the requests are made by the person who created the token. So that is a proof of authorization. And with OAuth, it's like you create a system where you need to that can work on the behalf of different people, but you have to ask those people permissions. It's that dialogue that you set up. Okay, sign in as your Gmail, or sign in as your Facebook, or sign in as whoever. That's the OAuth. So you create a pack, but the pack will then ask the user to authenticate with their Google, to authenticate with their Facebook, whatever, and then the whole system facilitates the exchange of keys. Okay, that now the pack will have some token available to itself. The pack, the token is unique just to that pack. The token allows to perform only specific operations on behalf of the user who clicked that sign, who went through that sign-in dialogue. So this is another thing. Well, in Make, I see this is just the token thing. You have to create yourself a token. Here are some instructions how you go to the profile. You go to the API, create a token. The token is label. Let's say, the demo token for pack. And we need to Datastores read. Pretty much nothing else, especially since I'm on the stream and I don't want to expose the token, and just so that you don't try this at home, the token I will invalidate it right after I finish the stream, so that no one of you will be able to read the data. So I make the token, I copy it, I will need it for now, and yes. And the next step after I have the token, I need to, I find the API, the endpoint that I'm interested in. And this is the Datastores, and it can be, whatever. Let's just test our API and see if it works. So I like the tool called Postman. I don't think they make it anymore. I just had it installed. Postman is a REST client that, there's lots of REST clients. Really, you can take whatever REST client you like. Postman now is a software as a service, so it has some cloud functionality, asks you to pay for it. I have the old version of Postman that works in a tab where I can do things like, so how do I authenticate again? I probably have to, so usually when you have a token, you normally have to set the token as a, you normally have to supply this token in a request, and usually in HTTP standards, this has to be an authorization header, and this usually is a bearer and just the token pasted normally. So this is how normally this looks like. Maybe there are, you have to locate the documentation that says how you work with the token. Pagination, blah blah blah, and how do you make requests? If it's not here, oh yeah, you can find, yeah, authorization, not bearer, just token. The word is token. Usually the word is bearer, but in their case they say token. So where is our, where it says token, but the header is still authorization and token, and then your token. And let's try make data stores, list data stores. Here's the URL. Oh yeah, team ID, columns. The team ID is a required parameter, so you read all about the endpoint. We have this permission set, so we do the get data stores. Usually this means that this is the part of the URL, but before that part of the URL, there has to be some like generic API URL, and the one here is EU1 or whatever is the URL of your instance. There is the US instance, there's the European instance. So EU1 make.com/API/version2, and then this is appended to that base URL. Okay, so we have this. Let's put it in here, data stores. Team ID, we need to specify it. What's our team ID? Let's see. We have organization 15674. So I guess that is the team ID, or no? Oh no, my team is 11723. Okay, some of these numbers will work for us. Let's just do trial and error. Oh yeah, here, this thing worked. So my team, 11723, got it from the URL, made a request to list data stores in our team. And here is the reply. We have the data stores, chatbot admins, chatbot exchanges, hub admins, hub gives, yada yada. So this works. We have a connection to our API. I mean, we tested it out. So the step number 2 is to get a feeling of how to work with the API and what it returns. So let's try and get some info about a data store with a given ID. Just because the APIs, they're usually made according to a very similar design principles, I'm just going to guess that get a specific data store, get all the data about the specific data store is going to be get/datastores/ the ID of the data store. That's usually how it works with APIs, with HTTP schema. And when you want to get the actual data, it's going to be /datastore/datastore ID/data or something. It will return the data, the exact data from the data store. So let's see. Get data store details. Here it is, /datastore/the ID. So again, it's all you learn how to work with one API, you pretty much learn how to work with all APIs. The differences may be in authorization, the differences may be in how you make requests, well, the schemas of a request, the schema of a response, so the differences are there. Some require you to specify some headers like content type or accept, some don't, they just assume you want the JSON as your reply, as your request, but generally the principles are the same. These are the principles the whole web is working by these principles. So whenever you load websites, it's totally the same foundation that drives REST APIs. REST APIs are the most sterile implementation of HTTP. Yeah, so this is the info on a given data store, and how do we get the data? See, I was right. Slash data gives us data. So you can see already that once you know how to work with these things, you can totally predict what's waiting for you, and it's adding the next API. That's why Leandro is making his dozenth pack already, because connecting to APIs becomes just the same thing over and over. You just, well, do service after service after, yeah, you get to know how to work with these things. Data. I don't know if you even need to, the team ID. You don't even need the team ID at this point. So you just get the Datastore ID and you get the data, and the record is 1 because it is perhaps not the table I wanted to read from. So let's say we have hub profiles 3960. Data. Okay, this is now something. So we have the key, we have the data, we have the spec, which tells us about the schema. We don't have to request it separately. So basically, to get our schema for the pack, we can just request the first page of records and use the spec from there, and the request will be cached. So when we query the first page, we will already have the first page cached. So we just save up. Yeah, this means more data loaded on each page, but we don't have to locate the spec separately. So this already tells us all about whether it's a string, whether it's a number. Do we even have numbers here? Yeah, we have a number here. And we can build our schema based out of the first page request. The limit is 10, the offset is 0. The total count is 3,383, so we have to make 339 requests to get them all, which is not what I want to do. Let's spin up the limit. The maximum is 100, so 100 rows per page. We need to add the PG limit 100. And now we are going. So we have the limit of 100 in the first result. And to get the next 100, we need to use the offset parameter. So ignore and PG offset. Ignore the first 100 and return the next 100. Yeah. There we go. And the final 83, if we set the offset to 3382, it will ignore the first 8832 and should return just one last record. Yeah, there it is. So the offset works not by page, but by the number of records we have to skip over. So start reading from the record number actually start reading from the record number after this. This many records you should skip. So this is our get the data API. Cool, we have a good feeling of how this API works. Time to build a pack. And by the way, if you have any questions, if something's not clear, please feel free to write to the chat or just write a general sentiment that everything is clear so far. One word before I get any replies in the chat. So HTTP works with different methods. Get is just one of the methods. It means get the data, return the data. Now it can, well, APIs can be set up in wrong ways, and sometimes a get method can actually insert the data somewhere. But the principle, the general principle is that when you make a method that returns data, and you can call it for, I don't know, thousands of times, and it should not modify any data anywhere, it should be a get method. When you add something to a collection, so you insert a data row, or you insert a new row to something, you use a post method. So post means The URL is the collection of something. Post means create a new record in that collection and insert the data that is supplied in the request. So right here it's not that nice. Well, maybe there is a nicer way to look at this. A nicer way to look at this. Well, it's an okay way to look at this. So there's the URL. So make a new record at the location data stores, number of data stored data, and put this data there. And let the server understand what to do with this data, validate it, transform it if it's needed, and put it at there and add it to the collection. We don't know the ID of the created row, it just says add this to the collection. If you want to specifically put a data at a specific location, so a data and then some ID, the row ID. And I don't think we have it. No, we'd have it actually. Put method is used. So put method differs from the post method. Put does not, you don't put to a collection, you put to a specific place in that collection. So you're not putting to data, you're putting to some specific ID in the data. And put is usually used for replacing a record at a location. Well, depending on how the API is designed, sometimes it's replace everything with what we supply. Sometimes it means just replace what we supplied, just replace several fields. So keep the name, keep the location, replace the price, right? So sometimes this is designed like that because they don't want you to compose the whole row and replace like everything. Replace the name with the same name, replace the title with the same title, and so on. So sometimes put works like this, and they usually say it in the documentation. So it updates, it replaces. No, it says it replaces the entire resource. Actually, I have no idea. Maybe they just wrote it, maybe it's a mistake, maybe it actually replaces everything. So if there's no name, it just deletes the name. Maybe that's how it works. What I'm saying, oh yeah, no. Yeah, it replaces the whole row. Know why? Because they have a separate patch request. Update record details. So any property that is not provided will be left unchanged. And that is the difference between put and patch. Put usually replaces everything, the whole record. Delete, it's as if it deletes everything at that location and puts new data at that location. And patch method is used to only apply the differences. So if you have a name and the price and you patch it with the price, it will only update the price but keep the original name. So here are the 5, and the delete. The delete of the record at a given ID, a given set of records. So the request, usually you get the delete and you get the ID in the end of delete. This deletes one record at a given location. But here they designed the delete method to accept a body, and in the body they accept a collection of IDs, so that with one request you delete multiple records. It allows you to delete multiple records. But usually they also, in APIs, they design that you specify a given ID and you just delete row by row by row. And sometimes you have a delete method on a collection, like here, where you can do a bulk delete. So there is a bulk get, bulk delete. There can be a bulk update sometimes, but usually it's created as a post method or as a patch method. And put usually means replace an entire record at a location. So this is the guide to 5 most common HTTP methods. And there's a few more, but they are not as nearly used as often than these 5. Right. So this is about the HTTP methods. Okay, we have 30 minutes on our hands. Let's build a pack. I may increase the font size a little bit, like this. And I don't need this. And I need to keep tabs of a few tabs because I will look into the documentation, maybe like this. I'll look into documentation. I'll sometimes try these things out. Let me maybe open this in the same so that I can extract that and extract postman. So I need these on the left, maybe, and maybe not. Maybe I don't need these on the left. So let me just work through this like this. Okay. Add network domain, and the domain can be make.com. It can be a top-level domain, so if I use make.com, it will allow to EU1 make.com, US1 make.com, etc. I need to add authentication. I can use a slash find set user authentication, and I will ask the person. No, it needs the bearer, and I need this to say token. So I'm wondering if I can overwrite the I need to figure out whether I can overwrite the so that it doesn't say bearer, so that it says token. Maybe it works if I say bearer. No. It's a different thing. So JWT, it's JavaScript Web Token is a different mechanism. It's not just a token like this. It's an encoded base64 encoded combination of the data, the bunch of data, and then this bunch of data is encoded on the server so that if you tamper with the data, the server can know that it's not properly signed anymore. So it's a different mechanism of authorization, the JWT. Maybe one day I'll tell you about it, how it works. Google uses this mechanism, the JWT, but in our case, it's just a token. So, okay, need to go to the Pax SDK documentation and find how to overwrite the header. Guides, authentication. Okay. I guess I need a custom token. How do I do that? Post setup is, it's a different thing. I guess I just need a custom header token, and header name is authorization, and token prefix is, it is actually easy to implement because we have the custom header token. It's still a header, but it needs but the token prefix, we can use token as a prefix and a space, I guess. This should be enough. And let's make a sample formula. No parameters. And let's try to just fetch something from the API and see whether it works. So let response, result equals context fetcher fetch method is get. what shall we get? Let's get this. URL is this one. And we await for that to get not the, if we don't await for that, the fetcher is an asynchronous, the fetch is an asynchronous operation, which means it sends the request to the, well, the JavaScript environment, the node environment. It sets a request to the networking module, and then the code stops executing, basically. But it will, how to explain this? So JavaScript is synchronous by nature. No, that's not right. JavaScript adepts will now kill me for saying this. The way JavaScript gets executed is that it executes it line by line, right? Oh, no, not true anymore. Not true. That is not true as well. Okay, tell you this. It executes the operations, but then when you get to an operation that it will not go to the next line if the operation is a blocking one. So a fetch on its own, any operation like reading from a disk is a long operation. Making a network request is a long operation. So it depends on how good is the network, how fast is the server on the other side. So many things. Sometimes it may take a minute to load the page, right? So if it makes a request to load something, and well, it's in general, like the JavaScript is waiting for the reply to come back, and the whole execution will block, and the machine will not process any requests while this request is blocked. That's the synchronous way of doing things. Then there is an asynchronous way of doing things. We make a request and let the code finish and not take up resources, not stop. But then we have to supply a callback of what to execute when the reply actually comes back from that other system. And previously, that's how JavaScript was done, like 10 years ago. You would make a request and then supply a function to run when the request came back, and you will have then another request within this function often, and then supply another function inside, and this will result in a very, very nested formula, and it was called callback hell, that you have to supply a callback and a callback and a callback just so that the code would not stop and wait for the reply. So the reply may come back in half a minute, and in half a minute you have to run that function. And then in that function you do something, and then you do something. So they implemented a notion of promises. So the code actually keeps on working, but instead of supplying a callback, we return the result as a promise. The promise that the function will eventually return a result with some value. And then you can add a callback on that promise, and the code becomes less nested. You can, well, just let result, it returns a promise of a fetch response with any sort of data. And I can make another request here, and it will send another request, and it will not wait for this to finish. It will create a separate request, and it will result in a separate promise, and then I can make some logic on these promises, like process the reply only when both promises finished working, like we got a reply on both promises, we make one single callback on that, and we got the data from here, from here, from here, from here. Everything is loaded. Let's now make our reply. So this was promises. This was a cool concept, but then they improved JavaScript to not even, so that we don't need these promises at all. We want to work with code as if we just, well, there's nothing needs to happen between making this request and getting the response. Nothing needs to happen. So they added the mechanism of await and async. So the formula, our formula, await. The formula is asynchronous. It means, well, it has this behavior of it finishes working before everything is executed in here. But what this means, here the formula finishes and the resources are freed up. But we have this await, which means result will not be the promise, but we will only get this result when we really have a reply from this fetch request. Well, I'm too bad at explaining technical JavaScript because I'm not a JavaScript guy. It's just how I understand this. So you don't need the technicality. You just need to know that you do the await on fetch, and this means that you can keep on writing your formula, writing your function, and treat res as if it already has a reply on it. So this means free up any resources, but keep on executing this. This essentially puts all after this request in that callback. Only that for you it doesn't look like a callback. It looks like normal code. So you wait for this to be fetched, and then the result will be written to the res variable or variable constant variable, and it will have a body, a headers, and a status. The status should be 200 for an OK result. So another thing that HTTP has, not just the request, not just the methods, but also the status codes, and they are well defined what they mean. But normally, if it's not 200, this will already throw an error for you. So Pack Studio makes it easy. You know that if you got this far, you have some data in your reply. So res body. What do we have in our body? We have records. Let's take the first record. And the first one is the 0th one. So this number is not the order number of an item in an array in JavaScript, but this is offset from the beginning of an array. So just like this is an offset of the beginning from the beginning of the collection. Encoding the numeration in array starts with 0. So it's the first item is going to be 0. So let's skip 0 places before we get an item. Let's skip 1 place before we get an item. Let's skip 2 places before we get an item. So think of it as an offset. Offset 0, and let's get that data first name. And let's maybe do the offset here, remove the offset here, because if we remove the offset here, the first name will be Paul, actually. Pavlo, Paul in Ukrainian. And let's say hello, this thing, and we can concatenate it like this, or we can do the formatted string, formatted text like this, using string interpolation. So hello, and this is somewhat similar to the format function we have in Coda, only that instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, we can supply the parameters already in here. Let's build it. Let's not forget to say that requires connection requirement, and this is Coda connection requirement required. I don't think you are actually required to set this, but let's just set it just in case. And let's install it, the pack here, make Datastore, add to the doc. API token is the one we are using here. Something is not right. My account is not working. Let's look into the logs, what it told us, what's not working. Invalid token. Why is that? Let's see what happened. So you can open the log, find the request that threw an error, and show the details. And here you go. Oh, authorization token redacted by Coda. So yeah, there used to be a token, and the response is that it's an invalid token header. Interesting. Authorization says authorization. So This is strange. One space. I copied the token properly. Well, we need to debug this. Let's go to our pack settings. Maybe I copied that wrong because doesn't look like something should be that wrong. Okay. Oh no. Disconnect and let's add a new account. Can't verify if it's inserted properly. Could just hope so. Okay, still not working. Interesting. Authorization. No, I spelled that right. Token, spelled that right as well. What about spaces? Or maybe I don't need the space there. Maybe the two space, maybe I don't need a space here. It adds the space itself. Because two spaces are apparently an issue for make. Let's try again. Let's build an update and try again. Wow. Wow, at least it does not complain about the authentication anymore. So it worked. It just didn't return us a proper name. So, so data, first name, perhaps. Because we don't have the first name like this. We need to get it like this. And to get it like this, you cannot use the dot notation because it has spaces in it. You have to read. You can totally read from an object like you would read from an array with a given key. And the key can be whatever string. So here is the first name from the data. Let's request that once again. There you go. Hello, Pavlo. Hello, Paul. So yeah, we have our connection working. That is a big, that is already very good, right? So all that's left to do is to build our sync tables, make the sync tables to get all the data from a given table. And just because there are different, so there's two ways now I can do this. I can do it in a static way, so I can only make like 3 copies with 3 tables with regular sync tables and not make them dynamic at all. Or I can make a dynamic sync table and the pack will be, well, it will be dynamic. It will list me all the tables that we have in our little organization. And perhaps I should have also included a parameter for an organization, but let's just hard code the organization for now, and when I make the pack for anyone to use, I will then add dynamic organizations that they will be able to select an organization upon setting up the connection. But let's just assume that we are currently working off the organization of Uzhhorod volunteers, and that is it. By the way, how many people are watching? I'm wondering. Well, 2 people are watching now. So you're not alone, Virginie. And it's totally fine if you need to go. So you will be able to catch up with the stream later in a recording. Okay. We don't need this. We can delete this. The Pack Studio will complain. Well, how much time do we have? 8 minutes. 8 minutes, 39 seconds. Let's start building a dynamic sync table. Right. We'll call it Datastore. We have a few portions of the dynamic sync table. So identity name is a name of a row in this table. So it's gonna be like an entry or a record. Now we have get name, get schema, get display URL, which I like to put somewhere around get name, get display URL, get schema, and the formula. And all these are unnecessary. And so this is the bare bone dynamic sync table declaration that Coda gives us when we type in add dynamic sync table. Yeah, the name of the sync table is something that's gonna be displayed to the right. The data store, they still haven't fixed that there has to be a space between the word record, list dynamic URL. It's the function. You can omit this function, and then Coda will ask you to supply whenever you drag a table. So let's see what happens when I just remove this. Get name is, well, let's say it's name for now. Let's say the ID property, we need to specify something here, and we will update it later. And you totally didn't have to, in the new JavaScript, you totally don't need to say the key, the value. If the key and value are the same, you can just enumerate the values, and this will mean the key is properties, the value, read the value of properties. The key is ID property, read the value of ID properties. But just for so it's totally the same as the shorthand syntax in ECMAScript, whatever, 2017 or whatever. We just need to give this name so that we can build our pack. So sync Datastore. Sync the Datastore. The parameters, we don't have the parameters. We just sync it all. Don't need the parameters. There are no parameters to pass, so nothing to pass here, and the context. And we pretty much just return nothing at the moment. A result is the to-do is the property that we have. We return one row with the to-do property, and we can build this, and we can drag the table to our doc. Where is our doc? Here is our doc. Are you following? Still following? Yeah, we got the data store. No list dynamic URLs method means that it prompts you to enter the URL here. And if we had that method, it would make this a nice drop down, like here with Sync Tables Pro. Oh, it's not in this doc. But well, if it would have this drop down and you would be able to select the source from the drop down, right? What URL do I want to sync from? So whatever. And properties, I probably didn't make the key to do. Yeah. Make. How do I make a property? Probably just like this. Oh no. Coda. Make what? Guess nothing, just type Coda value type string, Coda type, no Coda type, just string. Coda type is the extension of type. So the type can be just string, array, boolean number, object, and Coda type is something that we use. Where is that? Ah, comma. Value hint type. There we have a bigger selection that we can say, okay, this is a string column or this is a number column, but render this as an image URL, or render this number as a %, or render this text as markdown, or render this text string value as an email. So this will tell Coda which column type to use. And then if you use something like %, there can also be more things you can add. Press Control space. By the way, why do I not have this Karnak turned on? So that I can show you which buttons I'm pressing. Control space will give you access to more % doesn't have it, but let's say currency. You will see more properties that you can set. No, it will, no. Why not? Oh, because this has to be number. Currency. And here it shows you when you press Control or Command space, it will show you more settings that you can set on this field. So currency code, euro, precision, 2 digits after comma, format. Oh yeah, we have 3 settings: currency, financial. Actually, this, well, the editor complains that it has to be a currency format, so you probably have to use this. You can set it directly, but you probably have to use this Coda currency format and select one of the values from the enumeration, so one of the selection here. So this is how you construct a column on a sync table. But in our case, it's just a string, and we already made a build. And when I click pull data and insert any URL, because and the token that we totally forgot about got reset, and the URL, oh gosh, okay, they didn't completely make, just delete all these. And there goes the first 50 minutes. Okay. That's why nobody recommends using this flow. Yeah, there's our record with a to-do field, which has make the pack. So our sync table kinda works with some test data. Now we're gonna build it after 5-minute break. Right, time for me to get back. Just reminding you that I'm not now building a pack that will be public. That's why I'm taking liberties with not like it takes more effort to make a pack be, well, available for public and published. You have to be more thoughtful about all the parameters you add to the pack, about how you design your formulas, because once it's out, it's hard to change. You don't want to break people's dogs who are already using your formulas. You have to put extra care for that. You cannot just, like, whatever, I'm changing the order of parameters anymore. You have to really think forward yeah, have some future thinking on it. So that's one thing that you should do when you're preparing a pack for the public. You have to properly document it. So you cannot just like description of whatever with the table, which I'm going to do here. I'm now building a pack for an urgent need for just myself. That's why I'm not going to have any. I could even hard code the token actually. I could make it a system authentication type or whatnot and not give it a second thought. I'm really just think this is easier than making system authentication, and besides we have the custom header token and it, well, asks for this specific token. So yeah, we already have all the ropes to make it easy as it is. But now, like, I'm not making any variability as to the base URL, so it's EU1 for me, but it could be US1 for you. I'm not making any variability as to which team we're going to query. So I'm only going to work on a single team, so get all the tables from a single team. That's pretty much it, right? So that is my plan here. And actually, one thing that I'm going to do before I keep on, I'm going to already invalidate. Let me not show you the new token, but I am going to invalidate the old token, just in case some bad guy joins the stream now and tries to read the database of our people whom we and while I'm at it, I could also make this token to have the teams read permission, because yeah, or organizations read or teams read. Well, let's make a token that allows reading both the teams and organizations and the data stores. Maybe I will then actually make, okay, so make that variability. Let's see how far I can go with it. Just a sec. Yeah, just one moment. Let me install that token on the Coda pack. Okay, yeah, I installed the new token and you will not see it. So the previous one was invalidated and the new one actually Actually, I deleted something different, so okay. Anyway, 29FD, and the pieces that you should not see are the current ones. Okay. So yeah, let's make our data store. So yeah, this still works. This still loads. Let's make our list dynamic URL. So let's return, instead of having to set the URL of a given data store, let's query all data stores just like we did before. Okay, that was the old token. That is the new token. No. Okay, this one returns the data stores. Let's use this as our list dynamic URLs code. Actually, let's keep it here. Let's put this here. So list dynamic URLs, we make response is await context fetcher fetch method get URL, and we hard code the URL to just query everything from this team ID. Normally this would come through as some sort of either from the authentication, or we first would query the organizations, and then within an organization we would query the data store. Maybe I will show how to do that, because it means working with nested results from the response. So this list dynamic URLs could actually have the second parameter of folder, which is if you return it as a has children result, it will ask the list dynamic URL for that URL that you return in here. So anyway, it's not used right now. Let's just list all the tables in a given organization. So we have this, and for each of the data stores, we need to return an array that has display and value. Display and value. Value is the URL that will be used, or a URL or any identifier that we can then construct the real URL from. And the name is something that's going to be displayed here in the selection list. So one way to do this is to return a result body data stores. It's an array, so we can map over an array. It's similar to running a formula map. Item, and to each item in Coda this would be current value, right? For each item we return an object where do we need to actually make it nested? I'm wondering. We return this is a callback, right? So in the map, this is not an object, this is a callback, so we have to have the nested callback. What did it? So display is item name, and value is, well, we have the team ID and we have the data source ID. So let's just return the data source ID, whatever. Value ID. So why can't it map? Because we have to return an object. And build. And this should work ideally. So this returned us our data. But for some reason, it does not want to actually give us the list. So something didn't go, something isn't right. See what's holding it back. Result. Something's with the map. The map didn't really run nicely for some reason. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Hmm. Let's debug the old way with the log lines. What's happening? Now here it is. Here's the answer. Here's the display value, display value, display value. Oh, the value has to be a string, right? This has to be a text. So this has to be a text. It has to be converted to a text. Not a number. Oh, here it is. So yeah, I just specified a number, but it has to be a string, so a text value. I can convert to a text value by adding a number to an empty string, or it's one of the ways you can, yeah. So this is actually, and just return, no need to remove the logging. That was the issue all along. No numbers, has to be a text. It doesn't have to be a URL, just has to be a text value so that it is displayed here. Cool. So now I can select which table to bring in from my team to Coda. Now time to bring the table. So the result of the selected table will come along as the dynamic URL of the sink. So whatever we specify here as a value, in our case is just the ID of the team. So the real URL, when we try to fetch the schema, so the real data source URL is going to be more like Datastores, and then this dynamic URL there. So this is more like it. So we select the Datastore URL 3959. It becomes get 39 by 9, and it's just the data of the one data store. So the data source URL for the schema, we shall get it from the first page instead. But get name, let's get name of the given table, and this is where we fetch the metadata. We can just return context fetcher fetch method get URL is, well, this one. We have a one-liner. Await. No. As await. Return res body data store name. That's how we get a name given the URL that's passed through a context. Display URL, the link to the data store, the link to the source. It doesn't have to be here. We can just return the link, which will not work in our case, but we can. Well, let's go look at the link. Well, the link is this. This is how you get back to the table in the user interface. So perhaps this is going to be something like, remember that we hard-coded the team ID, so we only set the dynamic URL, and ideally this part is also dynamic, right? And get display URL is that thing that when you click here, you bring in the table. Let's build this and see what it gives us. So the hub gives. Oh yeah, the connection hasn't set up. When I rebuild and I don't move away from this tab, I have to reselect the connection, otherwise there is no connection. Let's say hub profiles. So this here, what it says in here, is a result of the getName function, and this where this link takes me. See EU Makecom, the number, Datastores, browse, is where this link takes me. Yeah, if I were opening this link from the copy link address, from here it would take me directly to the data table. Okay, just a sec. Okay, back at you. So this is how, I guess I'll have to get the headphones on anyway, because now it got a bit crowded in here. Okay, what's left is to load the actual data, get the schema, so what columns we have, and remember we can get that data from, where is the postman? We can get that data from this URL, this pack. So this is what we can use to build ourselves a schema. And then in the execute formula, we are going to return paginated data itself. And we'll say we are done for today, and I'll do my reports, finish the stream and do my reports, and maybe go and have something to eat. Okay, let's start with the schema. So the URL we will use to get the schema is the URL with the data after the data store. We get the data, and we need to fetch the first page. Context, fetch or fetch. By now you already know the drill. Method get. URL is the data source URL. And not just the data source URL, by the way, but let's already do the paginated parameter. Yeah, really getting crowded and I cannot focus then. Let's already use the first page. So let's already supply that parameter. Actually, the way to already encode the parameter is to use Coda, and with query params, we use the data source URL and we supply the query params as this. So pg limit 100. And the offset, we don't have an offset for now. Okay. Just a minute to realign with everything. Okay. From res, we need a spec. Oh yeah, and we forgot the weight. For each of, we need the name, right, of the column, and we need the type. And the type, we will just keep it to the minimum, text, boolean. We see an array here that has an inner spec. You can just ignore this one actually, because most likely, first, I'm not using this, but we need to do some recursive parsing then, I guess, after if I want to support this. Anyway. Yeah, we have the properties and we have to collect the properties properly. And we have the featured properties, the ones that are displayed by default. and we will have an ID property, and we will have a display property, and the ID property will probably be the key, and display property is going to be the key, and I need to include this already, the key, or just with no quotes if there is no spaces. Key is type Coda value type string. So we already instantiate this object of properties with one key, and we will keep adding to this object. We'll keep adding properties to this object as we iterate over our spec. So for let column of response body spec. This is one way to iterate in JavaScript. So each time it's like current value in this collection. We're not using the map formula. We're using the loop like this because we are not mapping this to a response. We need to take action on each item we need to take like a block of actions on each item of this array. So I'm going to code it like code, not just a map that maps current value to whatever. So the properties of column name equals, and type is gonna be if it's an array, let's just ignore it. If column type array, could be single quotes, could be double quotes, doesn't matter in JavaScript. Well, it matters, but not in this case. Sometimes I use single quotes for keys. With column type array, then just ignore, continue the loop, don't do anything else. Properties with the column name. In column name, I'm taking the name here from here. So when a column is this whole thing, column.name is, well, this field in the column object. Hope that's obvious. Equals a spec with type, which is if column name equals text, then Coda value type string. Otherwise, if column, not column name, but column type equals boolean Coda value type boolean, column type equals number, Coda value type number. Could have made all of them strings actually. And by default, it's Coda value type string. What does it not like? It wants me to be a bit more specific of how I set my properties. So I could either try just to be compliant with TypeScript, I have to do it like this. So if column type number properties column name Coda value type number, and then else if, and in the last case, so if it's boolean, then boolean. Otherwise, let's make it a text. Okay, and also add this column to the featured properties, push column name. So we should have made ourselves a schema, a simple schema. Let's build. This is, of course, need to probably at least supply the key, because the key is the ID property, so it has to be in the result, at least the ID. Yeah, there you go. It loaded the columns from our. We still have 17 minutes to finish the data. So yeah, it was hub profiles. Where do we have hub profiles? Key, first name, middle name, last name, document type, document ID, home city address, address for search, photo URL, added at, visits count, it's a number, last visit date. I think somewhere in the response it could have said that it's actually a date. Does it say that it's a date? No, because we are looking for admins here, but let's try to get the data source that we are querying here. $39.60. Oh yeah, there is a type date. Let's code for the type date. So type date. It has to be a type of string, because there's only string, number, boolean, but then Coda type will be the Coda value type. So there is date, there's probably the date time, or maybe everything is stored as date. So last visit date, created at, I think it's the date time, right? Let's see. Yeah, it's a date time. So value type hint. Why is it not working? Coda value hint type, date time. Also, I hope that it returns the time zone info, because yeah, it returns the dates and times in UTC, which means with that letter in the end says that means it would have been Z1, Z2 or something. That means in the UTC time, so it will be properly converted. This is 2 p.m. UTC. In Ukraine it will say 17:25 something, so 5 p.m. I'll have to re-import the table. It will not reapply column types after the change of the schema. It will only apply these to the new columns, but let's just Pax Datastore profiles. Yeah, this is now a date and time. Awesome. So the last part of the puzzle, the data. The data source URL is pretty much the same as here, right? But we may have an offset parameter. If the limit is 100, we have the pagination that we can return in result, and we can return the continuation, right? Or do we have it? I'm not sure why it's not there, but okay, maybe because there are problems in the code itself. So we have context. Think, no. We have to manually set up that this is think context, Coda, think execution context. And now it's gonna let me context, think continuation, get the continuation data. So let offset Oh, Eric, hey. Thanks for crashing on my stream. So the continuation may or may not be there. So let's say it's optional, not trying to read from undefined. Offset. We have the result. We make the query with the params. If offset is not undefined, which is one way to check for whether it is set or not, you could do something like this. You could just a shorthand for double negation. So one will return one will turn it to a not offset, one will turn it to Boolean, and then false will become back to true, true will become back to false. So this is one way to turn this into a check for whether it's empty or not. Params pg offset will become our offset value. And what that's left is to include the data, everything from the data, and the key and everything from the data. So let result equals res body, again the shorthand res body records, map on each record, so iterate on each record, return a key, and take everything in data, actually key record key, and then include every key from the data. So you can do this by spreading on the record data object. So it will, this thing with 3 dots before it, go over each of the keys in here and the values and paste them here, right here. So flatten this object. Well, that's what I think, at least. Let's test it out after I'm done with it. And then we can see if there is a continuation to happen. So if there is a if if there is the next page to fetch, if result body count is more than offset or 0 plus 100 rows that we just selected. And I think I have to take this in brackets. So what is wrong with this? Why doesn't it like it? Why doesn't the code like it? So I guess if let's do it like this: offset, if offset, then offset plus 100, just 100. No. Let's force the type to be the number here. Now it should work. So it should be offset or 0 plus 100. So it should work like this now. If there's still records to fetch, so the count is more. We had an offset of 3,300, but the count is still more. So in the last result, we got like 100 parameters, 100 records, but there are still 96 records to get. Then let's say let continuation. We initialize the continuation to offset of current offset plus 100. And we include the continuation, whatever it is. If it's undefined, it's not gonna be included, or it's gonna be blank. And if it's defined, it's gonna include this object in there. Oh, well, the result. We just include the result. We could write it like this, but it's the same as writing it like this. If the key and the value that we are trying to read from the variable are of the same name, you can just omit. Use the shorthand syntax. Okay, the moment of truth. Well, sync failed 2 seconds ago. Cannot read property count of undefined. Let's see what it returned us. No, there was a body, record, spec, and count. What did I mistype? Ah, because this is the map, so I wanted to read from res actually. Just a second, must take this. Okay, yeah, questions about the chatbot. So res, no, res body count. That should fix it because res is the response, result is the result. Let's rename it so that it's not as, it's not response, so that it's not as confusing. By the way, F2 brings up the rename pop up so that it renames everywhere where the variable is used. So you don't just type in each place, you can F2 Rasgas does response. So this is how you can speed up working with the editor. Okay, let's try syncing this again. And I guess we'll need a higher limit. Yeah, there you have it. So there we have our data pouring in from Make. I think it loaded the first. It usually loads by 1,000, so it loaded the first 1,000. No, the first 900. It should load the next 100 just in a jiffy, unless something failed. No, or unless some rate table row limit is reached. 900 records, the table row limit is reached, or it just didn't draw the remaining 100 records. Oh. I think it just didn't get the last page through because there was one record before, so it was like 1001. That's why it stopped there. So we increased the limit. Let's see. Let's also conceal some data. So I don't want to show this data on the stream. So 1900. Another 1,000. I'm wondering why it stops at 900. So this one is perhaps an incomplete record. Yeah, it's an incomplete record. It's not saved. So it was a row that was created as somebody was adding data to the database. Yeah, there it is, 3,397. All the records that we have in our table, right? 3,397. And then the same, we can do the same with another table. So where is our pack? Datastore. Hub gives. And the time just passed. Yeah, table row is reached, I guess so. 10,000, sync now. And yeah, it will load. It will load. So yeah, everything loads. So far, everything will load. The date is the right type, the date and time. And oh yeah, we wanted to check on the date time here. Right, 5 a.m. It was saying in the Postman, it was saying what? 2 p.m., right? 2 p.m. in UTC became well converted to 5 a.m. though. Oh, added at. Yeah, 2 a.m. here, 5 a.m. here. Yeah, 2 a.m. because I was making this chatbot at night. Yeah, and last visit date 5 p.m. 2 p.m. in UTC becomes 5 p.m. in Kyiv time. Yes, this works for me. I will have the report finished by the time the elevator reaches the top level. Remember that ad by Microsoft they were running in the 90s about Excel. My spreadsheet can't do that. Like a person was late to the meeting and didn't make a presentation, so they made one while traveling in the elevator upstairs. Fun stuff. Actually a very nice ad and like a revolutionary thing for its time. So oh yeah, the ad from 1992. You can watch it. So the amazing thing is creating a fake spreadsheet with some basic styling while you're traveling upstairs will secure you the deal. So yeah, we managed to, just in 2 hours, we managed to connect to Makecom, read the database. I will make that report that I need. So if I need to now get it nicely done like here, like in the old way, the old report, so get all the analytics in place, but it's child's play from now. Yeah, I think the goal here was met, which means I can now stop the stream, let my wife have a meal, tell her that she can finally make noise, go get some meal myself, and yeah, given that I made myself a haircut, means I will probably record a video or two today, more videos. I was going to finish the Sync Tables Pro today and maybe make a soft launch and record some videos, some demo videos about how to use the Sync Tables Pro pack. Maybe I'll record today a video on how to use the Edit Images pack, a more in-depth, not the 3-minute pitch that I submitted, not just the time lapse of me creating a thumbnail, but well, and by the way, I'll take this moment speaking about the Edit Images pack to once again ask you, whoever's watching, to go and vote for the Edit Images pack. I need all the help I can get from my patrons and subscribers. People in the top are actively asking their circles to vote for them. Why? So I should probably do the same, unless I want to play it totally nice and keep and be discarded from the top place. Yeah, that is all from me for now. Thanks for bearing with me on this stream. See you later. Cheers.